So in this episode, I wanted to share a question from a listener. They sent me an email, so I'm going to read the question first, and then I'm going to respond to it. Hey James. I was just on a walk to clear my head for a little bit. I just finished listening to one of your older episodes on bringing awareness to sound, and I was wondering what your experience is like in your personal practice. How do you approach guided mindful meditation while walking? Do you have any tips on the subject? Do you have any go-to practitioners for guided meditation while walking? Or have you ever created any content for your students? Just some thoughts as I try to take a brain break from work as I recharge a little. So, I don't think I've ever posted an episode about a guided walking meditation, which I probably should, because when I teach the mindfulness-based stress reduction courses, that is a big part of the class. I am guiding walking meditation. I think that I don't do it because if I were to be walking outside, I'm afraid that the wind would pick up on the microphone and could produce a poor sound quality. But maybe I'll try it one day, see how it goes. But in regards to the question of what do you do while walking meditation, let me just get the question again. I was wondering what is your experience like in your personal practice? How do you approach guided mindful meditation while walking? There are usually a question that comes up as a part 2 to this question a lot in the classes I teach. How do you approach guided mindfulness meditation while walking? A part 2 that would be, do you let your mind wander? Are you letting your mind wander, or are you focusing on certain things? Are you focusing on sounds? Are you focusing on your feet on the ground? What are you doing in your mind, in your experience, while you are practicing walking meditation? And the answer is, it depends, of course, like everything with mindfulness, but it depends on your intention. If you set out an intention to just focus on the sounds while you're walking, let's say it's a nice warm day and you hear birds chirping, and your intention is to walk for 20 minutes while listening to the sounds of the birds, well then that's your intention, and that is the focus of your meditation. That is the intention for what you're going to do with your awareness in that time. And then during that time you would bring awareness to the sound of the birds chirping while you're walking, and each time the mind wanders, you bring it back to the sound of the birds chirping. And that is a practice. It is a practice in focus. It is a practice in awareness. And that could be what you're doing while you're walking. You could also be doing that while sitting, so it's not specific to just a walking practice. What may be more specific to a walking practice is your feet on the ground and the movement itself. So another intention for a walking practice could be to feel your feet on the ground as you're walking. Feeling your heel hit the ground first and rolling so that the last thing that touches the ground is your big toe. And that could be the focus, the intention of the meditation, to just feel your feet on the ground. This is quite literally a grounding technique. Helps me when sometimes I find myself doing walking meditation when I'm stressed. There's something about pacing that is just soothing. And for me, it's like the grounding of it. Feeling your feet on the ground and staying with that. And in focusing on your feet on the ground, you are spending less psychic energy or of your psychological energy on whatever else it is that may be stressing you out. There's also the intention to let your mind wander. This happens for me naturally, like if I'm walking on a beach or something. If I set an intention of, I'm not intending to focus on anything, but if I'm walking on the beach, there might just be the rhythmic pattern of the waves over and over and over that I can't help but hearing and feeling the water come up and go move through my toes, feeling the sand on my feet. These are all organic mindfulness experiences, feeling the water on your feet, the sand on your feet, hearing the waves. It's not something we necessarily think about all the time as an intentional practice. I'm going to bring awareness to this, but this is why if you ever find yourself taking a long walk on the beach, you might go into this deep contemplative place or this place of clarity. It's really a practice in mindfulness. But what is the most beautiful thing about it is that we don't really see it as a practice in mindfulness. So we're not trying to do it. Sometimes that trying and effort can be an obstacle. So when I'm, as far as letting the mind wander, sometimes when I'm walking for a long walk on the beach, or not on the beach, just around the block, there could be that clarity that, to me, it's space. I think of it like, hold on, I feel a metaphor forming. I think of it like my metaphors are forming more slowly during the coronavirus. Well, no, it never came. What I was trying to reference is space. There's more space for what is happening in my mind. It is a bigger container. So let's say there is a certain amount of thoughts crammed in my mind, moving through my mind that don't have a lot of space to move around. And they're just kind of bouncing off the walls of my mind back and forth and replaying and ruminating. And going on this walk and letting my mind wander and just allowing there to be more space for these thoughts, it kind of opens up the space so that the thoughts aren't bumping up against walls. There's more space for them to travel. And in that, they're not bouncing off walls, bouncing off mirrors, and replaying and creating so much busyness, creating so much noise. Here's a metaphor. Okay, it kind of came to me. I'm thinking of Pong. Is it Pong? What's that game where it's the old Atari game where there are two kind of goalies. They're just like these lines that are blocking the ball that bounces back and forth from going past it. I think it's called Pong. But if those two lines were really close together, really close, like only an inch apart, the ball would be bouncing back and forth at a very fast rate. And that's kind of like the busyness in the mind when there's not a lot of space in the mind, when there's not a lot of awareness. But if you were to move those lines far apart from each other, there would be more space to travel. That ball would have a longer journey back and forth. And if you think of like each time the ball hits one of those lines, that's a thought happening. When we're in a place of awareness, when we're being more aware, there's more space for the thoughts, so there's less frequency of recurring stressful thoughts. So you might even have noticed this in your life. Think back of a time when your mind was just noisy and there was busyness, ruminating thoughts, stressful thoughts. And then you go for a walk. And when you're done, you're not thinking about those thoughts as much. There's just less of a frequency. There's a calmness. Really, those thoughts haven't gone anywhere. They haven't dissipated. But they are just being held in a greater space. There's less of a bouncing back and forth. So, that was part of answering the question, what are you doing with your mind while you're practicing? You can set your intention to the sounds, to your feet on the ground, your breathing, or you can set the intention to just have no intention. I'm just going for a walk. That's it. Whatever happens in the mind is what happens in the mind. If you spend your entire walk just racing through thoughts and you don't find it to be helpful because you're just ruminating on the same thoughts you were when you weren't doing the walk, then try something else. That's kind of like the simple part about this mindfulness practice is if it's not working, if it's not making you feel better, then try something else. So if you set the intention to let your mind wander, to try to have more space and clarity, but it's just a bunch of bouncing around of stressful thoughts, then try just listening to the sounds of the birds while you're walking. See how that works. And if it makes you feel better, then do that. Because really, what this is all about is self-compassion, self-care. It's all about feeling better, really. Not that we're trying to feel better, because the trying again can be an obstacle, but what I mean is, what's the point of this mindfulness practice? Everyone is trying to do it to reduce stress, to feel better. So if you do something and it's making you feel better, do it again. If you go for a walk for 20 minutes in the morning and listen to the birds, and that helps you, do that again. If you go for a walk in the morning and you feel your feet on the ground, and that is stressful for you, I guess I would say looking at your thoughts and understanding why it's stressful, but for the time being, during this crisis, do what's going to make you feel more space, more peace, more at ease. There's a time for understanding the resistance to a meditation practice, but there's also a time to just rest and to do what is going to be rejuvenating. Okay, I hope that answers the question. Also, I will say, if you have other questions, please email them to me, james@themindfulplace.net, and I will answer them in the same way that I'm answering this.